She wasn't supposed to be there because Rasheeda had ended her shift hours ago, but she returned. On the set, it was supposed to be another scene change, a quiet evening with no lights or cameras, but chaos broke out in a matter of seconds. Kirk Frost had another lady sitting on his lap, lipstick smeared, laughing in his ear as if she owned him. And Rasheeda lost no time in barging into his dressing room and yelling, "You think I wouldn't find out?" Could even stand it when she loudly slapped her palm across his face, bringing the story to a close. The actors and crew were shocked as the woman jumped up and ran and Kirk stumbled back. The damage was already done. Even if the room was filled with smoke from treachery and intense emotions, while fans are shocked and producers are in a panic. Everyone is wondering if this is the final blow to the most toxic love story in hip-hop. Their entire universe would be upended by what Rasheeda did next. This time, she wasn't keeping silent, as evidenced by her voice notes, pictures, and texts. Kirk's face fell silent as the smack echoed through the studio corridors like a gunshot. Without a word, Kirk remained there, his hands slowly rising to his face in wonder. The enigmatic woman had already departed by the time his gaze reached the doorway. Departing so swiftly that after everything we had been through together, she said, "This is what you've been doing behind my back," in a voice that was shaking. The cameras didn't stop, but Rasheeda wasn't finished. And the few crew members in the area weren't sure if they should go or keep filming, Rasheeda said. "Don't you dare bathe me," Kirk stammered. "After all the times I've forgiven you before," adding, "Baby, it's not what it looks like." She held out her phone and added, "You think I didn't know? You think I didn't?" It was packed, electrified, and about to explode. "Yo, what's going on?" said one of the actors who had heard the commotion, as they crept in from the hallway, but no one answered. "You were lying to me, and I knew it." Rasheeda inhaled deeply and tried to hold back her tears despite her shaking hands. "You think I don't know her name? You think I don't know how long this has been going on?" she asked, flipping her phone over and displaying a series of messages to Kirk. "Listen, I didn't want it to go that far. It was just a mistake," Kirk added, his face becoming white as he turned away from the television. "Did something go wrong? You've been seeing her for a long time," Rasheeda remarked, her voice quivering. It wasn't ending suddenly, Yandandi, and it hurt like hell. It was more than just another quarrel or some pointless drama on a TV show. It was astounding what the observers were hearing. "You brought her to our set, Weeks, Kirk, which was a really dumb thing to do. Are you really so stupid? Or do you really have that much courage?" They rushed inside the room after a producer alerted them to the situation. Rasheeda knew something terrible had happened because of her tears, her serious expression, and Kirk's apologetic demeanor. "Come on, girl, let's just step out for a second," she said quietly as she walked up. When Rasheeda came back to Kirk, he was motionless. "How could you do this to me again, after all these years? After all the public embarrassment? After raising your other hand?" she asked. "No," she said firmly. "I've been stepping out for years, stepping aside, stepping back, not today. After you stood up for me in a fight with my own family, I treated the children as though they were mine." Kirk opened his mouth to speak, but his voice was hardly audible. "Hurt you?" Rasheeda laughed cruelly, but it was too late. As soon as the hallway was filmed, tensions started to rise. Rasheeda wasn't giving up either, and when she checked her phone again, she found a picture of Scrappy, who had just departed the set, and another person trying to reach Mimi, warning her, "You need to get back here. It's bad." Before long, their phones were trading messages. The woman's voice filled the room with laughter as she stated, "He told me he's just with Rasheeda for business." Kirk's jaw tensed as she pressed play on the voice note. He claimed that he no longer even shares a bed with her. "I wanted to keep that from you, but what's happening in this room?" Kurt asked, closing the door before he could respond, then rushing in with a look of both horror and excitement. Coldly, Rasheeda said, "So tell me, was that real? Is that how you discuss me with the women you cheat with?" When Mama D glanced up and down at Kirk. She arched her eyebrows and said, "Damn, Kirk, you just can't quit, can you?" When Rasheeda awoke, she exclaimed, "You hit him, Rasheeda, and then, if you knew what he did, you'd hit him too." Kirk shook his head to get control back. "But this isn't what you seem always willing to pass judgment on me. But you don't know the whole truth. How did she get into your dressing room? Why was this woman calling you at such a late hour? And why? Did I find Uber rides and hotel receipts on your phone? It was just, I don't know it happened. I was wrong, but it wasn't as if I hadn't tried to build a new relationship first." With a cynical tone, Rasheeda said, "Everything just happens." Kirk took your business card, scratched his face, and then slumped down in desperation. "It was just another accident when you deceived, cheated, and made fun of me on national television." Rasheeda reiterated, "This isn't just my problem anymore." He made it public. So, in response to Yandandi's repeated attempts to step in and ask that we talk privately and stop this before it got worse. "Say hello to the fans," she added sourly, "and be sure to share your latest activities with them. Come on, don't do this, Rasheeda." She opened her Instagram app, hit the live button, and pointed the camera at Kirk, who had opened his eyes. In a matter of seconds, the live stream increased from a few hundred to thousands of watchers. But it was too late because fans were already flooding the live feed with comments. "Kirk, what's going on? Why is she crying? This time with whom do you cheat?" Everyone wanted to. Kirk stood up and yelled, "Please don't do this, Rasheeda," but she didn't notice the tears. No, if we were good, because Kirk is still the same guy who was lying and cheating. "And I'm done acting," Rasheeda said, shivering as she talked to the camera. The live feed ended abruptly when Yandi snatched the phone and shut it off, shouting, "Enough, you." The tears streaming down her cheeks were not tears of loss, but of years of repressed wrath. "I gave you everything," she sobbed, "and you gave me nothing but pain." But the damage was already done, for the screen went blank. The internet was already buzzing. The blobs were already taking it, and the same mysterious woman was already making her own. "This doesn't have to be done live. Let's just get you out of here." Even though Rasheeda thought the worst was over, the storm was far worse than the sting of the slap now, and as Yandandi carefully pulled Rasheeda away from the confusion, Kirk stood alone in the center of the room, surrounded by silence, humiliation, and whispers that the betrayal infuriated fans, especially those who had witnessed the couple fight back and forth in the dressing room for over a decade. The clip from Rasheeda's Instagram Live was downloaded, reposted, and shared on all of the major gossip websites in less than 5 minutes. Rasheeda, who had spent years defending Kirk to friends, fell into a chair and buried her face in her hands, while Yandandi knelt in front of her and clutched her hands, sobbing. "You don't have to be strong right now." Rasheeda's sobs came fast, carelessly, and uncontrollably. Supporters of pretending everything was well let it all out in one moment. And Kirk was pacing the hallway like a man about to smash his phone from the incessant barrage of texts from his kids, his publicist, his co-stars, and even Mama Scotty, whose heart was not only broken, but exhausted. Kirk couldn't think straight. So he sought an explanation, or at least damage control. He hadn't expected her to go live or Rasheeda to find out in this way. He reached a quiet corner and saw Scrappy leaning against the wall, his arms folded, his face impassive. "Yo," Kirk said. Scrappy shook his head and said, "You always do, man. And she always takes you back." "I hoped we would be reunited, even though I knew he hadn't changed. I messed up badly," Kirk muttered, rubbing his eyes. "Scrappy didn't move you good." Yandandi was terrified, so I rushed over to see the live stream before the door opened and Mimi stood in her face. "Are you okay?" Mimi, who was seated next to Rasheeda, said, "You don't have to go through this, but I'll be there," Rasheeda said feebly. The photographers were yelling queries, like, "Did Kirk really cheat again? In spite of security measures?" And when we got you alone, they had already begun to congregate outside the studio, Someone had leaked that there was drama taking place during filming, and now all the outlets wanted to be involved. Added Rashida. As people found her Instagram account, browsed through all of her postings, and linked certain photos to places Kirk had visited before. Twitter was on fire with accusations against the other lady, the enigmatic woman whose real name was now Tamika. A model. Some people don't realize a true one until it's too late. And Tama wasn't hiding. In fact, she was enjoying the spotlight by writing threatening posts like "Don't act shocked when the truth comes out." Kirk was finally having an internal breakdown and withdrawing into a peaceful location. When Tamika answered the phone, he exclaimed, "Don't start yelling at me." And she added calmly, "You said all those things, and I just kept receipts." Did you send that voice message? A staircase. You tore it off. Kirk moaned bitterly. "You just ruined my life," Tamika remarked. "And you claimed to love me. It seems that we both lied." "No, Kirk," she replied. "You did that yourself." Kirk's phone was a complete mess. And the last straw before he could argue anymore was when he smashed it against the wall and watched it shatter into pieces after losing the connection. In contrast, Mona had arrived on stage looking agitated, but she kept her cool by dragging Yandy away. Rasheeda went live after slapping him for cheating with Tamika. Following the viral video, Mona is gripping the bridge of her nose. "Damn it, we have obligations to fulfill and a reunion to document. And this might blow up the entire season. Perhaps we ought to be more concerned with these people's lives and less with the program." "Yes, but we need to determine the consequences. Who is speaking to whom, and what will Rasheeda do?" Although she is upset, she is not currently considering making a statement or doing an interview. After pausing, Mona slowly nodded. Wendy was thinking about how she would tell her kids that their father was out here embarrassing the family once more when Kirk, who looked 10 years older than he actually was, approached Mona warily and asked, "If they could talk, you had better say something nice," because Mona looked at him coldly. "I want you to stop hiding behind lies," Mona said with her arms crossed. Kirk agreed, adding, "If you don't, Tamika will speak your truth." Kirk added, "I want to make this right with Rasheeda and the fans, so I'm not running this time." At last, Rasha stood up and wiped away her tears, saying, "I'm Rasheeda, and I've built a brand and a business." Mimi whispered, "What are you thinking?" Kirk nodded slowly, setting it up somewhere else. "I've come too far for him to ruin me again. I think I should remind people who I am. I'm more than just Kurt's spouse." Kirk came out of the studio as she reached the door. Rasheeda took a deep breath, straightened up, and made her way to the set. "I'm going back there, not for him, but for me, to tell my side, and I'm done with him. And a legacy, and I won't allow any guy to harm that." Everyone in the studio held their breath. Mike's shirt was snipped, and the producer's room cameras were already rolling when Kirk said, "Rasheeda, are you able to speak with me? You want to talk?" She responded calmly after staring at him and the camera. Kirk took a deep breath, understanding that he had erred again and that this time there was no excuse. "You better be ready to say it in front of everyone because I'm done with secrets." The following chapter suddenly shifted into something far more lethal and far more evident. The tryst started on a work trip and wasn't meant to be serious. He admitted, "I was nervous, expecting Rasheeda to interrupt, but she just stared at me, her silence encouraging me. Kirk, while you were out wallowing in your own misery, I was managing our companies, upholding our brands, and keeping the house together. I suppose I felt abandoned since you stopped seeing me, but that's my selfishness, not your fault. You have deceived me." After months, I freaked out and tried to stop her from going public. But Rasheeda's expression hardened because I was too close. Even though it looks pathetic, I did nothing to stop him from having sex with models. She became irate when he said, "I didn't want to hurt you, but you did. You did it in the studio without even flinching, and you injured me more than ever before. As though we were a picture-perfect pair. You snapped Instagram photos, made breakfast with me, Ken tucked our kids in every day. Was tense, and the camera team kept capturing the moment's unadulterated spirit. Since this was real pain happening in real time rather than reality TV, Mona was crying as she watched from the monitor room. "I know that's not enough," Rasheeda Kirk murmured, "but I need you to hear me say it." Rasheeda slowly shook her head and muttered, "I'm sorry. You always say you're sorry after the damage is done. But what about the trust you betrayed?" Kirk's eyes had become shiny. "What about the humiliation in public? Not because of the affair, but because you made me feel ridiculous for loving you. I smacked you in front of everyone. You're not going to believe this." A producer whispered in Mona's ear, and before she could reply, the studio door rocked with such force that everyone turned around. "Tommy is here," Mama said as she rushed to Rasheeda and Kirk. And Rasheeda blinked. "She is allegedly threatening to commit suicide if we don't let her in, and has additional receipts." When Kirk swore, Mona glanced between them and said, "You want? Me too," shut her down. After a moment, Rasheeda stood up and wouldn't let her in. "She had come wanting to talk. Tamika," I said. "Well, this is snug," as she glanced about. Kirk seemed embarrassed. "Tama, why are you here?" A short while later, Tamika entered the studio with a feeling of pride. She was wearing fancy clothes throughout, and her face was angry. Rasheeda folded her arms and politely told me my side. "Oh, please, don't act like you were the villain when you were the one slipping into my den, making promises. And acting like we had something real," she said, "because I'm tired of being painted as the villain. Don't blame me for his decisions." "You leaked the voice note," accusingly responded Kirk. "And I'll leak the videos too if you keep lying." Tamika responded, "You had no idea that he was married." "But you didn't flinch." "Course I did. And he knew he was cheating, but he kept coming back." When news broke that Tama had entered the building, fans flooded Twitter with real-time updates. And Rasha responded to Tamika, "You think you're the victim here." As crew members exchanged anxious glances and Mona gave the cameras the all clear to start filming, "You've been covering for Kirk for years. Perhaps I just did what you never could. Disclose the truth. Gives you power. You're just a footnote in a long list of women Kirk exploited to ruin himself." Tamika replied, "I was the only one who dared to speak out about it." Instead of snapping, Tamika took a long breath and whispered, "I didn't come here for your approval." "Good. You didn't expose the truth. You exposed yourself, and you showed the world that you were okay being someone's secret, someone's side piece, and now you're proud of it." She said, "You'll never get it with that." "Hey y'all," she said, looking to Kirk, and then added, "Since the truth is out, let me break it all down." Kirk snatched the phone from her and hung up. When security eventually stepped in and pulled her away, Tamika rolled her eyes and screamed, "Stop, enough with this clout chasing. This is my life falling apart." And Kirk fell onto a chair, his head in his hands, carrying the weight. Rasheeda was outside her car with her hands on the steering wheel when his decisions suddenly fell apart. Her phone was buzzing with notifications of fans' admiring messages and startled inquiries about what would happen next, Rasheeda said. "But I'm sure you don't want to return." Many people called her and said, "Okay, no." While Yandi and Scrappy were sitting in a quiet room across town watching everything live on a broadcast, Rasheeda commented, "Now it's time for me to finish this chapter." Yandi then said, "This might be the messiest scene." Even though night had fallen, the drama between Kirk and Rasheeda was far from over. As seen by the live stream video of Tamika's rage following Rasheeda's departure, "Yeah," Scrappy said, "but for once, perhaps it's the realest too." With hashtags like #TeamRashida and #KirkPicks exposed trending, fans were picking sides and blogs were dissecting every frame of the leaked film, with some saying it showed real sadness and others saying it was just another staged scene for the sake of ratings. Rasheeda sat quietly at home, turned out the lights, and ignored the several missed calls from Kirk, Mona, and even Yandanti. Then she read the encouraging remarks from fans, which made her cry. "You deserve more. Watch the pain in your eyes fade away forever. But Kirk's betrayal left a hole in her heart that could not be filled by any amount of online support. Kirk, however, sat alone in a hotel room, staring at his own reflection in the mirror, looking broken. As though he had finally realized the cost of his not sure whether she would read it. He typed a message, erased it, and tried to call Rasheeda. Again, via voicemail, writing, "I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm not giving up on you yet." While his luggage was unpacked, his mind was racing. Then the motel bed was still in its original position. The headlines the next morning were the network called an emergency meeting because viewers were demanding answers and advertisers were concerned after Kirk's side chick crashed. Tamika came clean and Mona Scott's reality show descended into real-life disarray while obscene gossip sites were having a field day. Would you be able to speak with Rasheeda and perhaps help her make a comeback for a fitting season finale? At the time, Mona wasn't thinking about the show, so she called Yandandi in hopes of getting assistance in fixing the problem. Because she was enjoying the surge in ratings, but was worried about the potential damage control. Yandi adamantly said that Rasheeda needs peace, and if that means avoiding the cameras, then so be it. Mona recognized that Yandandi was right, but she didn't want to let that happen, so she didn't object. Mona mentioned pacing in relation to survival, but if we don't finish this, the audience will lose interest. The story ends without at least one last confrontation. 2 days later, Rasheeda was already sitting at her computer, and Kirk seemed nervous when he arrived at her studio. And Kirk asked her if she would like to have one last conversation with him without cameras or crew, but only on certain conditions. There was no kiss, no embrace, no light chat, just silence and distance at the desk. "Thanks for coming," Kirk murmured in a whisper. "But I didn't do it for you," Rasheeda said, motioning for him to sit, and he nodded. "Whatever you came here for, I did it for myself to get closure." "Oh, I don't need a pardon. You practiced," saying while Rasheeda listened impassively. Suppose he inhaled. "I know I let you down in ways I can't even measure. And I don't expect forgiveness, but I must take responsibility for my actions. Not just the dishonesty, the disrespect, and the way. But for now, yes, I need space. I need healing. I need to breathe without feeling like I'm drowning in betrayal," she said candidly. And Kirk resisted the urge to ask if we were done. His eyes filled with tears as he reflected on our past together, and he said, "I need to rediscover who I am without you. If you ever need me, I'll be here," she muttered. "That's the problem. You were always there but never really present." Even though reporters were waiting in the studio, Kirk pushed by them, dazzled by the flashes. "Roll it," she whispered to her engineer. "Are you sure?" The letter was full of sadness and the loss of something sacred, and when Rasheeda finally opened it, the harsh words did not ease her pain. So she folded it up again, dried her eyes, and headed to the recording studio. Within hours of Rasheeda sharing the unexpected freestyle. Fans erupted on Instagram, declaring, "This is the realest thing." It was just sincere words without a beat or hook. "I have to turn this pain into something powerful," she added, adding, "If Kirk is allowed to tell the story, then I am too." A reader commented, even Tamika couldn't help but watch in silence as her moment in the spotlight had fizzled. Another wrote, "Give her a Grammy for emotional honesty." Her DMs quickly declined as her followers turned against her, and the brand she was pursuing took a moment to react. In the meantime, Yandi visited Rasheeda to check on her. Her clout-chasing homewrecker. "This isn't love and hip-hop. This is a Mies S." Yandi said, "Yes, you're stronger than all of theme." Rasheeda responded, "I didn't want to prove anything." Rasheeda smiled slightly and said, "I just wanted peace. So, what's next?" Kirk kept watching her, and she said nothing as her acts were self-evident and her followers and bloggers kept writing and discussing them. He placed freestyle on repeat and reenacted every scenario in his mind because, for the first time, he thought he might have lost her. The betrayal and rawness of what started as a startling slap and abruptly turned into a revelation that appended the whole romantic scene. crushed hip-hop fans. As Kirk Frost now faces the consequences of his crimes alone, Rasheeda is beginning a new chapter that will be full of advancement, independence, and healing. Controversy cannot silence her, and scandal cannot stifle her voice. Rasheeda displayed her emotional strength with her head held high, chose to make it more impactful than any tabloid headline. But the question still stands, is this just another disruption in the complicated relationship between Kirk and Rasheeda? Or is their romance over? Will Kirk make an effort to win Rasheeda back, or does she no longer want to be the forgiving wife? What? Will Tamika continue to cause problems behind the scenes, or will she disappear into the background? The drama is far from done, and fans are already debating and speculating about it online. Nothing like this has ever occurred in the many highs and lows of hip-hop love. Even though the hit was brief, it's still there will be long-term repercussions for everyone. Now's your time to express your thoughts. Is it time for Rasheeda to move on permanently, or does she need to bring Kirk back? If you were taken aback by what transpired, please remember to like this video and leave a comment below. There is more drama to come, so make sure you click the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any more crazy updates coming up to you.